Hello, my name is Marilyn Clarke and I'm the Director of Library Services at Goldsmiths, University of London. I'd first like to thank the Lilac Conference Committee for thinking of me and for inviting me to be a part of this year's conference. In particular, I'd like to thank Claire Packham and Heather Lincoln for all their support and help. Just a little bit about my institution, Goldsmiths, University of London. We're based in New Cross, South East London, and we're part of the University of London, teaching across 20 academic departments, spanning the arts, humanities, social sciences, cultural studies, computing, law, teaching, social work, and business management. Goldsmiths also has a Centre for Contemporary Art, the CCA, a free public art gallery, bringing world-class exhibitions to South East London. The CCA also hosts international artists, projects and residencies, alongside talks, performances and films. Goldsmiths is home to Open Book, which aims to bring down the barriers that discourage people from entering higher education. It works closely with a network of agencies to support people from a wide range of non-traditional backgrounds, such as people who have struggled with addiction and mental health, and ex-offenders. Goldsmiths also has its own university press. So the title of my keynote is Decolonisation as a Means to Creating an Equitable Future. And some of the questions I am talking about in this video and will be talking about with you all in person at the conference are these. How do we retain the importance of decolonisation in relation to historical injustices and how these injustices continue to impact students, staff, education systems and society? Discussions on decolonising the curriculum have dominated classrooms and dominate committee meetings, and even dominate media headlines. How can these decolonisation initiatives bring meaningful and radical change to curriculum and pedagogy? And how do we ensure the voices of students are also a part of the conversation? And in which ways can libraries teach information literacy so that it's informed by social justice, as we move towards more equitable and inclusive systems and structures? These are some of the subject areas I'd like to touch on. Before I do that, just a little bit about me. Within my institution, I am the co-chair of the Race Equality Group, which is a part of the staff network, the HR Equalities Committee, the Racial Justice Strategy Board, the Anti-Racism Training Group, and I'm also a co-chair of the Race Equality Charter Self-Assessment Team. Externally, I am a member of the CILIP, Black Asian Minority Ethnic Network, and also the SCONAL, Black Asian Minority Ethnic Forum. I'm also a SCONAL board member. I'm a speaker, a writer and a consultant, and I am also an associate lecturer at UCL, teaching on the MA in Library Information Science. So the call for change is upon us and has been for many years, but most dominated in the recent 5 years within the education sector. The British Empire dominated almost 3/5 of the world for over 400 years. Its systems still dominate its former colonies in a plethora of ways, not least in education systems. The very structures of university buildings, including libraries, can themselves be foundationally rooted in colonial history and slavery. As a black child of mixed race heritage, growing up in the UK on the outskirts of London, I was never taught by any black or Asian or minority ethnic tutors. And it wasn't until I studied for my diploma and my master's at Birkbeck that I was taught by black tutors. And what does that say about our systems and how they need change and how they continue to need change and how slow change is to happen? It was in 2015 in South Africa at the University of Cape Town that the Rhodes Must Fall protest movement came to life, with its call to remove the statue of Cecil Rhodes. This campaign brought global attention and led to a wider movement to decolonise education across South Africa. In a Times Higher Education opinion piece in July 2019 by Soloshna Bandeyar, a professor in the Department of Humanities Education at the University of Pretoria, she quoted a student of the Rhodes Must Fall campaign. Getting a degree here is a form of mental slavery and colonisation. We can no longer breathe. We want to breathe. We must exorcise the colonial ghost from the curriculum. We want relevant knowledge. We want to study African history. We want to reclaim our black history. It was not only in South Africa that the call for change was happening. It was also in Oxford and in the UK and in the US and in various other countries around the world. In Oxford, the Rhodes Must Fall Oxford campaign took off. Similarly, questions like, why isn't my professor black? Why is my curriculum white? Were being asked by students in institutions. Within the library profession itself, there have been similar calls for change. The CILIP ARA Workforce Survey 2015 revealed that 96.7% of the profession identified as white. I'm sure we are all very familiar with this statistic. It was out of this that we saw movement within the profession to change, to diversify. Groups like Dylan, Diversity in Library of the North, came about. Groups like the CILIP BAME Network and the Sconnell BAME Forum came about. So the sector, the library sector, the profession, was also part of this change. But if we're looking at the education landscape with the changes happening there, we could see it in the books that were being published with titles like Dismantling Race in HE, Decolonising the University, Unsettling Eurocentrism in the Westernised University, The University and Social Justice. All these titles were published in the last 5 or 6 years. There's a huge focus on decolonising education, universities, social structures, systems. And beyond the education sector, within the government, the publication of, in 1921, of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities was condemned by CILIP and by the CILIP BAME network. And the UN spoke of this report, which was deeply, deeply racist. The UN said, in 2021, it is stunning to read a report on race and ethnicity that repackages racist tropes and stereotypes into fact, twisting data and misapplying statistics and studies into conclusory findings and ad hominem attacks on people of African descent. That was a statement from the United Nations. In 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement was established after the racist murder of Trayvon Martin. And these murders go on. beyond George Floyd. And in the UK, we saw the establishment of a social enterprise called the Black Curriculum, addressing the lack of Black British history in the UK curriculum. Its founder, Lavinia Stennett, wrote an opinion piece in February this year for The Guardian, where it showed that only 12% of teachers across primary and secondary schools in England felt empowered to teach optional topics around Black history. These topics, including colonialism, migration and identity, cannot be taught without the necessary guidance and accompanying materials. Most teachers felt that they were not provided with enough ongoing training and personal development in this area. And it is through the Black Curriculum organisation that this training is being supplied. The Black Curriculum has provided training for over 6,000 teachers across the country. In Wales, the inclusive curriculum has been adopted. It has not been adopted in England. Black histories are not embedded in teaching in this country. In October 2020, the Equalities Minister, Kemi Badenoch, told Parliament the government does not want children being taught about white privilege and their inherited racial guilt. So we are challenged in many ways, even at governmental level, in trying to decolonise the curriculum. But to decolonise the curriculum, we must tackle Eurocentrism. And here I'd like to quote from a book called Unsettling Eurocentrism in the Westernised University, edited by Julie Couples and Ramon Gros-Foguel in 2019. The Westernised University is a site where learning and the production, acquisition and dissemination of knowledge are embedded in Eurocentric epistemologies that are posited as objective, disembodied and universal, and in which non-Eurocentric knowledges such as Black and Indigenous knowledges are largely ignored, marginalised or dismissed. The Westernised University does not only exist in so-called Western nations. As Ramon Gros-Foguel writes, the Westernised University, with its disciplinary divisions and its racist, sexist canon of thought, is also to be found in Dakar, Buenos Aires, New Delhi, Manila, New York, Paris, or Cairo. Demonstrating the reach of Eurocentrism within university systems, within education systems across the world. I just wanted to highlight that because I think it's important to do so. We have to recognise the power and the presence of Eurocentrism. So what can we do in libraries? Well, we can revise our reading list for one thing, and this was one of the areas that I know many libraries are working on. But it's not simply about swapping white men for Black women in the curriculum. It's focusing on challenging historical biases which limit our understanding of learning, politics, society, and our world. If reading lists are not reflective of the world, the community, then students are presented with a skewed perspective on who is an intellectual authority and who gets recognition. To diversify and decolonise reading lists ensures students see themselves reflected in the curriculum and able to identify with scholars regardless of their background and from all backgrounds. My lecture will also touch on critical information literacy and what we can do in terms of our subject librarians and our liaison librarians when approaching critical librarianship through critical information literacy. I will focus on critical approaches to information gathering, open access for resistance researching, and resistance researching for inclusive citation. I will touch on all these areas at my keynote when I meet you all in April in Manchester. I hope we have a productive, challenging conversation with each other as part of the conference. I look forward to that. Thank you. Goodbye and see you in Manchester.